Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3.
Why, hello, and welcome to My Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. Now, typically, I have Mike and Ben. They're gone. They weren't even involved in this event, so they decided not to show up because they were jealous. But I have guests, Dave and Adina Ewalls, who spent their anniversary at Distill America. Our friend Jeff Schwartz, whiskey fellow, who is a whiskey writer and has been insanely knocking out whiskey reviews this year. Jeff, you're on an insane tear. There's a new one like every day. If you haven't been keeping up with that, I can't even drink that much. I mean, and Fred Swanson, national brand ambassador for Dancing Goat Distillery, and part of the team that thought up of Distill America and continues to make it happen year after year. Thank you, each of you, for stopping out this evening. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. Before we go any further, I'm going to get something out of the way because otherwise I'm going to forget it. Tomorrow night on the Bar Cart Co-op, they'll be having non-traditional grains. Alan Bishop is going to be hosting with Kevin Rose. They're going to be talking with Chris and Don about using unique grains in the distilling process. And I haven't had anything from Dragonfly in a while, but Golden Beaver I did have, and the rice one was pretty interesting. So make sure you stop over there and check that out. And if I'm slow on the comments in the chat, that's because I'm working all the stuff over here. So it's going to be a little bit slow this evening. But thank you, John and Emily and Shannon, Neil, everyone out there. Thank you for stopping in. All right. There. Loosen up there for a second. We're past that point. And when we were talking about Distill America, that's the way I went this year. I had like 2 weeks of really tight work and heavy, and I actually kind of cut out a little bit early to make it in time, which was fantastic that they allowed me to do that. So it took me like a good half an hour or 40 minutes to kind of, loosen up a bit. But that's also because I was enjoying the fantastic day that happened in the middle of May. Sunny, 80 degrees. You really couldn't ask for a better day, in my opinion. Let me see here. I should have. This was a picture from before the event started, overlooking Lake Winona. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I did not get to go to the first event, but I know that Dave and Adina, and so did Fred. Now, give me a second here. What happened at the very first event that you guys had planned? Because that actually took place about an hour before anyone else could get in, correct?
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear Dave and Adina, and then I'll weigh in.
It was Nicole Austin from Dickel tasting through some neat expressions. And the nice thing about the seminar was before any of the booths opened outside, so we weren't missing out anything outside. We were able to do the VIP thing early with Nicole, and Adina can talk about what we tasted through. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The first thing we had was their regular bourbon. I can't remember proof on that one, but it was really good. And I know there's a lot of people that, really dislike that taste in the Dickel
minerality.
I gotta say, I didn't pick that up.
Well, this is what they're calling the bourbon, and Nicole
Right.
explained to us that she sets aside these barrels, the same mash bill, same finishing, everything as the regular Dickel, and these are interesting expression Dickels that she uses for the bourbon. So it doesn't taste like your grandfather's Dickel.
Yeah.
So that was a fun one to kick off with.
Yeah, and then the bottled and bond Tennessee, again, it was like a whole new introduction to Dickel for me, actually. Then she did the Leopold
Yep.
blend.
Dickelpold.
Yeah, we call it the Dickelpold around here, but that is just fabulous. What she did with the blending in that is fantastic, and what Todd's rye is, the 3-chamber rye, is just fabulous. Then she did this other one called the Cascade Moon, and it's an interesting one. Those are some older barrels that have lost enough alcohol for Angel Share that they no longer legally qualify for whiskey.
Yeah,
They come out at like 38, 39%.
Yeah.
So they marketed it as a specialty whiskey, and it was really interesting.
Pretty tasty, actually.
Yeah.
And just it's the opposite of your high proofers.
Right.
Renita agrees with you guys on that one for sure about the rye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Leopold collaboration is just awesome.
Yeah, it is. Historical, tasty wise, and just she and Todd hit it out of the park. Really.
And if you've never been to Leopold Brothers, you got to see that still up close and personal.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll make you fall in love. It's one of those things. I mean, it would for me, and the way they're using this is kind of the way, after having it and talking with Todd, I think you're going to see a lot. I think there's about 4 other 3-chamber stills I know that are in production but aren't working. But I think you're going to see a lot of it more being used as like a cutting agent of 5 to 20% to someone else's bourbon or rye as like a mixing agent to it, to add like not a ton of extra depth, but at least give it a kick.
Yeah.
To kind of amp it up that notch.
It was pretty cool. Nicole let everybody pepper her with questions, and she was very, very, very open to people to grill her about anything and everything. And she's sharp, very sharp.
Definitely smart woman. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a great kickoff for the day, I think.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And Fred, did you get to attend any of this? Are you running behind the scenes like a madman?
No. I'm the one that, not me completely, but we got Nicole here based upon the reception we had last year online, Distill America at home. She had a 20 minute-ish seminar, and the feedback that we got just anecdotally was phenomenal. And she was so stoked by what we had done that she needed to see it for herself, in her words. So I'll be honest with you. There were people that were disappointed when they bought the VIP Plus, when they found out that it was Dickel. I'm sure that we even had some people that sold their tickets. And that's the part of the consumer end of this conversation that really is wonky. It's come on, guys. When else are you going to get a chance to have Nicole Austin for an hour? Okay.
Right.
So, even if you don't like it, and then she blew everybody out of the water. First thing she said was, I'm going to address every single thing that everybody in this room's thinking about. And she started talking about Flintstone vitamins immediately. Okay. And she just put it on the table and said, now can we all just fuck off? And we moved on, which was awesome. And she listened, and there was only one point in time when she had to rein herself in, when she couldn't divulge the next few things and the next few collaborations, which is just seeding the pot. So we were very excited that she came. It's not always American whiskey just because it's Distill America. It's the one caveat. We've had tequila in there, we've had Scotch in there, we've had Irish in that. So every year it's a little different based upon who we can get. But for little old Madison to get Nicole Austin up here, I think is a big swing, and it's a big swing.
And those VIP Plus, I didn't get to go this year, but the VIP Plus, it's amazing what you can learn there in that kind of a seminar.
Absolutely.
And definitely worth doing.
Worth every penny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would agree. Thank you very much.
The value ratio of the tickets to entertainment value was very high.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just looking at time and talent, I mean, Nicole's time and talent is worth more than $20 extra in my mind.
Oh yeah, easily.
Well, and to have someone who's talented, but also take a brand and be like, I don't want to say I'm going to turn this around, but I'm going to torque this and put my spin on it. And you're not going to get the things you necessarily were concerned about in the past. We're addressing that, and we're on our way over here. Here are some examples to prove it. And then when you have those, you're like, yeah, you're right. Then you get excited about what's coming next. So it's always being, I don't want to say at the ground floor of something, but right as something's starting to churn and head in that direction, to be able to pepper her with questions, like you said, is a pretty unique experience.
Absolutely. And we're trying to do an interactive seated sit and get with that, where you're not just listening, but you're sampling and tasting through to educate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, every single one of those sessions, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, everything you've been to, and I know David and Dina, everybody walks away with a glass, or they walk away with, they walk away with something. I mean, those were some cute little Copita glasses that were super nice. And that right there, that's an $8 or $10 glass. So, we're trying to do value, not just in time and talent and liquid, but that one in the top right corner was the sexy little glass.
And it is a lot of people.
I've had several glasses from over the years.
No, I was gonna say the Copita glass is actually a lot of people's kind of favored glass when you start talking to them. So, no, it was one that I was a little frustrated we didn't get there in time to go to, but I've always enjoyed wandering the show when I got there. That first hour when it's 150 people and you have 90 different tables. I mean, you got to look at it. That's almost you and your friend take up the two people that are supposed to be in front of that table. I mean, if that's the way you're, I'm like, really unparalleled access to being able to talk to people doing a lot of unique stuff. That's usually when, I guess you would call it networking. I'm not the best at doing that sometimes. Like I wasn't the best at taking pictures this year because a lot of times I'm just talking to people, like I'm just talking to you. I'm not always trying to think spin. Dave from Natural Spirits. They're building their own distillery and they're going to be coming out with their own stuff here in a bit. We were having him on in July and we were going over his honey barrel aged gin. And there was like different levels of how much kind of wood and oakiness were in it. And it was like, here, see what you think. And I'm like, well, how often are people asking people for an honest opinion in situations like that? Where you're getting kind of brought in and you're extra palate for tasting, but people actually want to know what you want to say about it, good or bad,
That's one of the beautiful things about this event. I mean, you get to interact, and like you said, you can get lost in the conversation. Every year I wind up, and there's probably 3 or 4 different distillers I wind up talking to, eating up all my time, and I'm happy to do it because I'm learning something. And we're interacting, and they ask me for my opinion, I give it, and it's so much different than going to some of the bigger shows where you're just shoulder to shoulder with people. And here, just pour me something, which is all those become to be. But there's so much, even if you don't hit the VIP plus, there's so much education involved if you want it. Mm-hmm. If you want to go there and just drink, it's set up for that. If you want to go there and learn and talk and meet people, it's set up for that.
Right.
This being our first year there, it was, I think we learned a little bit more how to pace ourselves a little better because we did spend a lot of time talking to people with some really unusual things. And it was really fun. And in fact, we're planning on going to one of them next weekend. And
you can say it's not like you're under, NDA agreements and shit.
Where are you going?
That was it.
Drew Hands up in Cottage Grove. I think.
Downrins.
Dondrins. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dondrins. They had
It's a
some
great
really,
little spot, yeah.
really unique stuff.
Yeah.
And they were talking to Adina. Adina makes some crazy, weird
Concoctions.
spirits, and she says, "Wow, do you do that?
Yeah.
You got to come on up, and we got to
Yeah.
talk."
Nice.
That's some interesting stuff, and really more than just whiskey. A lot of great gins. Pat mentioned the honey one. There was really some interesting cross section of spirits. Really,
Yeah, in fact, I don't think they have any whiskey that's mature.
Right.
right.
It's all liqueurs and vodkas, and it's really cool what he's doing over there.
Mm-hmm. And I was surprised at all the ready to drink cans too. They're
Yeah, wait, I have a picture. It's kind of towards the end. All of a sudden, people started handing them out, and I ended up with a few.
And there you are with Dominic next to you too.
Yeah, and actually, I think the Arnold Palmer one and that one, I thought that was my favorite. But I mean, that was my favorite out of those cans.
mm-hmm.
So when I got out there, I want to get into everyone's thoughts on like a lot of stuff when you get in there. But when you first got into the point of being able to taste stuff, what were some of the ones that you guys hunted out? Because kind of that first hour that it opens up, there's a lot of special barrels, a lot of special releases. Like Four Roses had their special one. Everyone has kind of their special one, and you can get in there and get. I'm usually not rude. I mean, I almost feel like I am because I'm in, I'll get my sample and get out, but there's usually a line at some places or other places there's not. In that first kind of hour or even throughout the event, was there one that of kind of like a special release that any of you guys had that kind of jumped out at you?
Yes, and I'll tell you what the trick is. First of all, if there's a line, you just throat punch everybody. You can walk right up to the front. Seriously, for me, the one that I'm always interested in is Four Roses, just because for me it's impossible to get. So I want to be able to taste it. So after I said hello and got caught up with Marty Duffy for, I don't know, the first 45 minutes, I wound up over at the Four Roses table and had their 2021 limited edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was delicious.
Yeah, same. We ended up over there. We ended up over at Dancing Goat and tried some things that I didn't know that they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big table there, more than what you would expect.
A bunch of stuff to try at Dancing Goat. It was
Curiously, they were right on the water. Funny.
How did that happen?
How did that happen?
They had a good view. One of the ones in the first little bit there that I went up and tried was Baum Brothers Cigar Blend.
Yeah. I
hadn't had that one before. That was rich. And that it was one of those ones that you had right away. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to have to come back to this to get a real opinion on it. But that was one like off the bat, just kind of turning right out the door that there was a lineup of 2 or 3 people. And that was one that kind of jumped out at me. Now I knew I wanted to try it because I haven't had their stuff in about 1.5 years, and I've loved the progression as it's gone up. So I really liked what they did out of in the first hour or so. I think that was the one that kind of jumped out and surprised me the most out of stuff. And then sorry, I'm gonna go all over the place because I just
go for it. It's your show.
It's gonna be random because there's so many booths. Did you people try the 0% alcohol booth?
No.
Why would anybody do that?
You skipped the 0%. It was crazy because it was like flavored water.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like booze. It was like water with like an aftertaste. I thought Adina would like it for cocktails. Like it just
maybe I would, but
it was just different.
The one that I stopped at was. And I'd had it before, but and I don't drink a lot as an organizer when I'm there that day, so I'm limited in this part of the conversation. But the Juniper from Great Lakes, which is an NA gin,
Yeah.
And what he did was brilliant, because what he did was he added pepper. He added pepper to mimic that alcohol burn.
Mhm.
And it throws your palate. It kind of throws your palate right into where it should be. And then you realize, oh, hold on. Gin, not gin, gin, not gin, but you still feel like you're drinking alcohol.
Mhm.
And it was brilliant the way they did
Kind of true.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the caption here. 0% alcohol sounds like getting half pregnant.
But it's like, I have some friends that can't drink anymore, and it kind of lets them slide into an event and still have something, and mix and do something different. That I wasn't prepared for that one even being there. But yeah, it was weird because, like I said, it was almost more like a water, and then having like the flavor notes come in afterwards. It hit a little different, palate wise.
And it's kind of like, I mean, does everybody remember when NA beer first came out?
Mhm.
And it was hot garbage. But now you taste some NA beers and they're phenomenal.
Mhm.
You could, most of us think that our palates are way better than they truly are. And the general public's very convinced that their palates are ridiculously solid. And you could bury NA beers today into the middle of a lot of beer tastings, and people wouldn't know. And spirits aren't there yet, but they'll get there. I mean, it's at the very, very beginning of this ride. So people will figure it out. It's just, it's people playing around with, and is NA going to be huge? Never. Okay. But is it a lane of the highway that some people think that they're going to be first in? Sure. Absolutely.
Speaking of hot garbage, I noticed that Malort was not there this year.
We had a very, and I will tell you unequivocally, we had a very tepid response from Breakthrough Beverage when it came to their throw-in with us. Typically, they've been very good, which is why you didn't also see Sagamore Spirit there and a couple other folks. Tito's wasn't there.
Yeah.
This is not a whiskey event. This is a spirits event.
Mhm.
And Tito's has every right to be in there, and I will fight tooth and nail because, Tito's has been there since day one. This is in 14 years, they've been there for the first 13. So I was bummed that I didn't get a better response out of Breakthrough and their team, but hopefully next year.
Mm-hmm.
Was it difficult because last year was at home, so there was like a break in momentum?
I just think for some people, they felt like they weren't used to this date. So I think that through people,
That's true too. Yeah.
I think people were used to that February event. I will tell you unequivocally, Dave and Adina, I don't know where you live, but Madison is not at all ready to be inside a hotel. Even in Dane County, where we're very vaccinated, I could have put on a really great event for 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it would not have been the same event. So being outside was a test balloon. But I think that, like you said, Jeff, I think the change in date threw people. I also just think that people just aren't yet ready. There's some people that producers probably aren't ready to be in front of people. And then quite honestly, staffing is a huge issue.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to send an heiress representative, which is the table folks that all of us hire when we can't go do an event. They're nationwide. Those are the young gals in black cocktail dresses typically. With a
Am I allowed to say what they're called?
No, but they're a limited bit of knowledge. But they're nice. They certainly serve a purpose, and I think people just didn't. Some people might not even have the budget to do that because that's not inexpensive either.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think for the date there were a lot of other whiskey events going on that weekend. Not only just locally, like I know Texas had the Texas Whiskey Festival, and there were like 2 other ones. So I know there was a lot,
Whiskey Fest in Chicago.
I know Balcones was at like 2 or 3 different places over the weekend. And like you said, staffing at that point becomes an issue. You want competent people to represent you. It is the most important thing there. Even if you don't know a lot about the brand, just being competent in general or being able to speak well with people is a big deal, because having an enjoyable experience is almost just as important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Oh, and yeah, Steve A. That Whiskey Fest was the night before in
Right.
Chicago.
And it was Mother's Day weekend, and it was graduation, and it was prom, and there was a lot of competition for.
There was. I just just speaking about it in general. I think compared to the one in the hotel just gives it a little bit of an edgier feel because, well, obviously you're in a fancier hotel, but this had this kind of neat for me like a yacht club feel, and I almost want to pull it into like an 80s movie. Like it just had this like a little bit of a throwback feel that I enjoyed, but it was I'd say more relaxed. People were more mellow. Even out in the crowd with people, I think people were a little bit more relaxed.
It was very relaxed, I think, really. Yeah.
It was like pure Madison, right on the lakefront there with the Capitol building in the background and, being out on the lawn there. And the weatherman really cooperated well.
Yep. And I told Fred this over the weekend. I was pleasantly surprised how well the outdoor event turned out. I actually preferred it to the indoor for a variety of reasons. But I thought it was more casual, less stressful. You weren't shoulder to shoulder with people.
Right.
My Mrs. Whiskey Fellow goes there in either a wheelchair or a walker, and she had no problems. And usually she's getting run over. And, so for me, that was very, very nice as well. But it seemed more relaxed, and you could actually visit more tables because you weren't worried about fighting crowds.
Right. Honestly, the layout at the peak of the numbers of attendance there, you didn't feel like it was, crowding you out.
Not at all.
And my 5'2" wife, didn't feel like she was getting stepped on at a lot of shows, and
And the other nice thing is that the food was away from the whiskey or away from the alcohol. So you weren't competing with those people as well. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That food was fabulous too, by the way.
The food we were not
expecting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great.
One of the things that was noted by some people, or asked by some people, I guess, God, your numbers are down. And I'm like, yeah, you're looking at numbers being down, and they might visually look that way, but our footprint is 4 times the square footage. So it looks like there's fewer people because the space is significantly larger. So we had roughly the same amount of tickets, same amount of distillers, and the same amount of bottles being represented. So, and I love the fact that, and I'll say this, and I will go to the wall with this, Whiskey Fest is the reason we started this event. So being opposite of Whiskey Fest is fantastic, because we're the anti-Whiskey Fest. We're the not a $350 damn ticket festival. Okay, we're the ticket that's affordable so that the right people are in the room. And when I say the right people, and I've said this, on Patty's show before, and I'll say it again 100 more times, the right people in that room are not, just the attendees. Generally, it's anybody that works. If you look at it from a producer standpoint, it's anybody that works a liquor store aisle, anybody that is behind a bar, anybody that owns a bar, anybody that buys for said bar or restaurant. That's who needs to sell all of our stuff. And if we're not in that cognitive dissonance of always being compared to Macallan 25, and Knope Castle, private selects and all that, then we can stand on our own as a nation, and we can absolutely shine. Okay, because I can tell you right now, if the Dancing Goat table was in the middle of Whiskey Fest, I fear that we would be ignored. And I would say that the majority of the people, aside from Big Kentucky, would be ignored as well. So us showcasing in the second oldest American craft distilling event in the country is a badge of honor, and I will fight tooth and nail for something that's 1/3 the price.
Nope, and I agree with you, and it's not just the price. It's, for me, look, I love Scotch. I started off in Scotch. I love all sorts of whiskeys from around the world. It's nice to hit something that's American only. And to come up and to see what we can do and how different American distilleries work with each other and compete against each other.
Mhm.
And you can't do that when you've got the Glenmoe table and Ardbeg and Paul John and Redbreast and everybody else there competing with it. This is American. And it's not just whiskey either.
Mhm.
It's vodka, it's absinthe, it's gin, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it show off what America can do in spirits. And it's eye-opening for people because there's people who have no idea what goes on. And the other part of it is, drink curious, which I've been had that philosophy for years now, thanks to Bourbon and Banter. I want to know, and I want to try stuff I've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
And I can do that at Distill America.
Yep.
I go to Whiskey Fest, like Fred said, yeah, is dancing out there? Yeah. Am I probably going to miss it? Yeah. Why? Because it's mixed in with the big, huge, worldwide known companies that are getting all the attention.
Yep.
And they're great in their own place, but there's something magical about craft and discovering something new.
Well, and it's discovering it on a lot of times a company's way up. You know what I mean? It's like you're talking about all these famous brands and here and there. Now you're starting to, with some of the craft whiskeys companies in America, getting to that prominence, but they've been around for 10, 15 years now. So they almost are, starting to have releases of, 10 years. At least in Wisconsin, I know we've had 2 or 3 of them that had releases that are that late into it. Not saying their stuff wasn't good beforehand, but so some of them are starting to garner a larger attention. But it's cool to be along for the ride. I mean, that's like seeing a prized fighter when they're okay, and then as they're going, they start learning how to use the jab better, a hook and an uppercut, and you start seeing the whole thing to come together, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, you witnessed kind of history being made and you were there for it, where a lot of other times you're just kind of catching the coattails of it. I like feeling that connection to people being on the verge of something great. Now a lot of times you go to these things and not everyone makes it a couple years down the road. Yeah. But that gives you the respect for the people who do, because it's not an easy game.
Talking about that, I mean, I was the first reviewer to do J. Henry and Sons. I was either first or second to do Dancing Goat for the Limo Rye. I was early in on Blaum Brothers once they were doing their own stuff instead of MGP. And those 3 names now are known entities. And, it's exciting to say, hey, I knew these guys when they had no clue if they were going to make it or not.
I think the cool part of the entire thing of us just having to look at it in a nationwide flyover is that it is a demystification process. Okay. It's no longer comparing us against anybody else. And people have asked for years, and Adam and I have answered this question multiple times the exact same way. People have said, Fred, how will you know when you've made a difference and achieved the goal that you were looking to do before you even set out? And I'll say, when 3 friends that I know, 4 friends, are super knowledgeable whiskey guys, are sitting talking about vodka with intent. And it happened in year 3. And there were 3 to 4 people having an honest conversation about vodka that would not have happened anywhere else. So, and that whole notion that, vodka is odorless and tasteless is just not true. They're all very different. They are certainly builder things. But what I love about our event too is that if you load the app on your phone, you can sort by rum and just drink rum for the day. You can sort by vodka. Christ, you can sort by cream liqueurs. Okay, and just hang out with Dave Schlapper all day. So I mean, there's an element of not of drink curious, but it doesn't have to be so stuffy. It doesn't have to be sport coats and tweed jackets with leather patches. Okay, there doesn't need to be a smoking room outside. We can be outside. How about? I mean, we were a first tier 1 event, and I would put us at a tier 1 whiskey event in the country. First one to ever go outside, and to be able to pull it off with the success that I believe we had, and the feedback we're getting from our customers, because we're sending out or did send out to all the distillers as well as all the attendees that we had emails for. We sent out a survey to find out if we hit the mark. So I was really excited to do that, and put Wisconsin on the map for yet one more thing that was pretty cool.
Hold on 1 second.
And it truly was really a showcase of upper Midwest distillers, really. And, talk about the regional thing, not just Wisconsin, but, there was some Illinois folks and Minnesota and, upper Midwest distillers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you had Balcones, you had Four Roses, you had Heaven Hill. They were coming from all over.
Throw the big folks in there too.
California that was there.
Yeah, we make no bones about. We were not about just being a craft event. We were about being a American spirits event. So Big Kentucky was never going to get X'd out or boxed out. So.
Right.
Right.
It was nice to have that diversity of not just the Midwest guys there too.
Right.
Sure.
For sure. Yep. But where we could walk up to a table and like the folks from Cottage Grove, and there's 12 different wild spirits there. Here, try this watermelon liqueur. What? Okay. Hey, this is fantastic. And
they are very creative there.
Yeah.
We were discovering things like that, just kind of exploring some of the really different stuff. That was a lot of fun.
I always like at the big tables how you get to try things you usually don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were like at the not everyone gets to try the barrel, the single barrel Colonel Taylor or some of the finished Thomas Moores. You get to do that. My one friend, just because he's not here, he was afraid of the camera this evening, so I'm giving Rick shit about it. After having everything, and first time there, he was really happy with everything. Thing that surprised him the most, because he said he was at a point where he would just walk past it. He said he didn't even want to try the Jack Daniel's table. He's like, no. I'm like, no, those 3 bottles on the right are legit.
Yeah.
I'm like, you go go stick your nose in there. I'm like, for the $55 to $70, they're probably one of the best price points on the market. I'm like, with everything else blowing up ridiculous. And he was like, I totally didn't want to believe it. And I'm like, it's the same thing with Jameson. Like if you have the base one, I question why you even, after you have the good stuff, why you even make the other stuff. But I understand the market, but it's, but I'm like, you get there and you're like, okay, so there are people there that are doing, cool, mind blowing stuff, but it's just not on the scale that you're seeing it in all the bars and everywhere around the world. Like, those other pieces need.
Every bar has Jack and Jim.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yep.
And Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I mean, that's you're catering to what people know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, one of the better barrels that I picked was Jack Daniel's.
Mm-hmm.
And you get out of the old number 7, and JD is an impressive as hell distillery.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons that I encourage, because I have these conversations with distillers every year, and they're like, should we bring our flagship? Should we bring the old number 8? Should we bring regular makers? And I'm like, yes, because people are going to want to go to it, get a house profile, and then taste it against something higher end. So you're going to want it there for a comparative factor. So, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. So, and then a lot of people that don't think that way are like, why did they bring that? We've all had that. And then I try to explain to people, it's the comparison, it's the back and forth that you're getting between, so and that's the great part about it, is that if you can spend 5 minutes and try a Jack next to original and just be blown away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was fun is the Four Roses booth had a bunch of single barrels of all the various recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Never at an event before, even visiting this distillery, be able to go through 4 different recipes side by side and contrast. And I was able to just walk up and do that there, that was phenomenal.
I feel like
Imagine
that ran
what you
out
would
when I
have spent to do that at a bar.
Yeah.
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 It would have been a little costly.
Little pricier.
It would have been the price of a Distill America ticket.
Or more, yeah.
And we've encouraged them to do that, and we've really leaned in on that VIP hour. And then we've also said, you know what, you can do whatever you want after the VIP hour. If you want to save that bottle for your own hotel room afterwards, that's fine. No one's going to tick you on that. But if you want to, if there's still some left and you want to share it for the first 30 minutes of general admission, that's fine too. So,
So I do have a couple other pictures, but when you were mentioning spirits that you weren't, getting people to like vodka that were whiskey drinkers this year, my thing was I ended up finding like 3 gins, and I'm not a gin fan per se. Like I'm starting to build respect for it, but there was State Line, the natural spirits, and I know there was another one that all of a sudden, where was it? I think Adina grabbed me and pulled me someplace. There was another gin, but I don't remember where. But that's what I was surprised by. All of a sudden I was like, okay, so gin kind of ranked number 2 this year as far as kind of turning Pat's head, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I think gin I was surprised.
People are getting really creative with gin.
Yeah.
Well, gin is the anti-whiskey because whiskey, bourbon in particular, has tight parameters. Gin has no parameters. It's a spectrum spirit because it just by definition has to have juniper. So then it's a spectrum spirit, and people can, though it's the one thing that might actually get as close as we can in spirits to terroir, because you can make a gin that absolutely represents where you are in the United States, where you are in the, in the UK. So that's what I love about it. And I would also argue that I think that there's 20, maybe 25% of the gins on the market are closer to flavored vodkas. Yeah. But if those pull people out of vodka and into some semblance of gin, that's okay too.
Well, there's a lot of these craft distillers that are growing the botanicals right outside the rick house.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And see, how is that not a great conversation? Sitting with the distiller or the assistant distiller and saying, hold on, what's the botanical load in here? And where do you grow them? Do you have other farmer partners that grow them within your area? I mean, that's a fascinating conversation to me. I agree with Silver Fox. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and it's just from what some people get from 4 or 5, and then you see people throwing in almost an absurd amount in the gin where it gets almost too complex in my mind, or it's too busy. But I mean, you could really layer the living hell out of it if you wanted to.
Yep.
Or you can get to the walk up to a Christmas tree and start chewing on the branch.
Well, that's what my mom had me thinking it was. Like there's a couple times when I was younger, she would hand off drinks. It was at a wedding, and I was not 21 yet. And she was like, here, have this drink. So I drank it. And then I had another one. And then my dad handed me one. And I'm like, what the hell's... Like I was stopped. I'm like, is this a trap? Like, like I've already failed. Like, but like it's like, no, they're just really bad. I'm like, oh, I was gonna say something. These are awful. I'm like, I don't know how you're even drinking them. I'm like, it tastes like pine saw in a glass. I'm like, this is horrific. And then she's like, this is a Tom Collins. I'm like, no, it's not.
I know guys named Tom, and they don't taste like this.
Gin or after.
But I thought
the first part of the test that you failed.
I thought we'd already converted you to gin.
You did. I'm on it. It's just like I'm still in the bulk of it. I'm finding some more that I like, but still there's still some of these people that are going for stuff that I think is overpowering.
Yeah.
Or their Navy strength gin gets more like antiseptic than it's really the gin that I don't know. There's still some out there that need some refining in my opinion, but I'm finding, I'm starting to, like I said, I'm starting to come around. There's more and more that I'm like, yeah, damn it. Got to add a whole other shelf to the whiskey room now. Damn it!
Now it's a
Patty,
spirits room.
the part of the test that you failed was, no, Father, I'm not 21. It's not appropriate for me to have this.
No, hey, they were handing it to me. They saw like the confusion on the second one. Like I was like, looked at my brother and like, what the fuck's going on? Like this is not. Normally they'd be yelling at me already. Here it was just they had terrible drinks. They were trying to hand them off because people were buying them drinks, and they're like, "Here, you just." That's all. That's all that was
Give
happening.
it to Patty. He'll drink anything.
Yeah.
Look at Patty. He likes it.
Yeah.
He likes it. He likes it.
Patty's got a green feeling in the bathroom later because all that. Ugh.
What's wrong with Patty in the corner?
Just don't mix Pop Rocks with the gin.
I've never thought of it. Never thought of it.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see. I'm gonna go over a couple other things quick, just from bottles I had. I don't know if anyone else did. Basil Hayden had a nice. Some people will crap on Basil Hayden. I think it's a really nice entry whiskey, and then to start seeing them play with some other flavors, the subtle smoke was actually kind of nice. Like nothing from them is overly mind-blowing complex in my opinion, but they're very, very drinkable. You know, like you just sit down with it and be happy. So
Basil is one where if somebody says, I want to get into bourbon, what do you recommend? That's an excellent starting point because it's light and inoffensive.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was checking out the chat for a second, trying to bring some back. Yeah.
Who's that? Adam Cassie? Who's he?
That's one of our organizers.
He's a classy drinker, that's for sure.
It's Adam from Distill America.
Yes.
And Star Liquor.
This moment brought to you by Star Liquor.
The last time he was on, he was doing it from the basement. So
Adam's a great guy.
He is.
Adam's a great guy, really.
No.
Okay, I have one of those, the ready to drink old fashions, and I'm going to be reviewing it. I grabbed one.
Should
I give my review right now, Jeff, or do you not want to hear it?
No, go for it.
I will say it's the thing that blew me away at Distill America 2020.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I literally stopped in my tracks. Tom gave me one. I drank it the next day at home. So I was paying attention. I'm like, that's a home run. The thing is a home run.
Yeah.
I went out and bought a 4-pack the next day.
So good.
It's fantastic. That's the best canned cocktail I've had.
Got it right here.
Absolutely.
They knocked it out of the park.
It's in my queue to be reviewed.
Wow.
It's I think what they did was they really leaned in hard on a differentiation. How am I going to make this different, but still a classic Wisconsin old fashioned? Their use of multiple bitters really shines through in that can.
That's what did it. Yep.
So
you don't
matter of
see
fact,
that
I
enough.
texted Tom when I'm drinking, and I'm like, dude, kudos. This is awesome. And that's one of the best things about the industry, is that we're all firing stuff off when we try each other's stuff many times. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude, really well done. So, and there was a lot of those.
It's funny.
moments.
A couple
I
of
just
years
didn't
ago,
drink
Tom
it.
was telling me about they were going to get into canned wines.
Yep.
And I'm like, really? And now we're at this. And yeah, I agree with you. That was a showstopper for me.
Yeah. So,
Mhm. Well, and I was just had it up because of the table, because it got into. I've always liked their bottled and bond, but I think they're obviously with their background, it leans into some of the bourbon and the flavor they're getting out of it. But I, once again, a lot of brandies to me are too sweet. I think Wollersheim's and Dancing Goats brandies were the best two there. And in my mind at that point, a little opposite ends of the flavor profile. One was a little more intense. One was a little more subtle and playful and light. It was neat. And neither one of them, like I said, were overpowering or too sugary, because that's usually where everyone else loves them. And I'm like, I like it, but a glass is good, and that's enough for me tonight. With those two, I could see you digging into it. And it was the first time I had it since you guys put it out. And I respected the fact before that you were just going to cut Corbell's knees out from under him. I love that goal. I love lofty things that are fantastic like that. But then tasting it, I'm like, dude, you are going to play to a lot of people's profiles with what that was, with the light honey, nectarine, little apricot. That was the lighter side of it was really nice and blended well together.
What's amazing? Thank you very much. By the way, it's amazing what you can do when you really are intentional about your proof point, because you know it's not going to be drunk neat almost ever, and you're proofing it so that it hits 80 proof after dilution in a cocktail, and you're intentional about overproofing it, because I will absolutely go to the wall and say that 80 proof booze doesn't make the best cocktails.
Nope.
It just waters down too much and nothing punches through. So, I think looking at that and then sitting on a shelf, I mean, we're sitting on the Woodman shelf right now at $16.99. So, that's going to catch some people's attention.
And it's a gorgeous label too.
It is. It very much appeals to women, which I love, because everything else, all the Pantone colors in whiskey appeal to men because they're all blacks and dark browns and tans.
And greens.
And greens.
Green for rye.
Dark green.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Sean was taking pictures for me. He decided to do work for me. So he got the Driftless Glen table that I think their exclusive release. I had that one. I was pretty impressed by that. And like we're talking about, when you have a whole lineup of stuff at a table and you're more than happy to try it, that's always exciting. Let's see here. He was at Old Sugar Distillery, and the thing he came away with was the Rudy Fox.
Rudy Fox?
Yeah, he liked the sweet vermouth out of that one. And it's all the other weird little unique things that you pick up that you weren't expecting to try and taste, that you're like, I think we need to stop and pick a bottle up of that before we leave. And all of a sudden you're like half a trunk full leaving Distill America to go back to Green Bay between 2 or 3 people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. That's what you're loading up for.
You were a little economic engine.
One of the interesting things that I do to prep for Distill America or any event is I pick out ones that I've either never heard of or never tasted, and go online to their website, see what they do. And it's, for me, hey, I'm a whiskey reviewer. So if it's whiskey related and I've never heard of them, they've got my immediate attention. They are on my priority. Yep. Because look, I love the distillers that I know. I love the whiskeys that I know, but I know them. I don't have to go to an event to try it. I've got it here. But, going there and something like, Old Sugar, which I apparently missed at the event. Sorry. Never tried anything out of them, I don't believe. They would be somebody I'd be interested in seeing.
Right.
Well, I had wanted to try Blue Ash,
Blue Ash was fantastic.
Hadn't gotten a chance to. It just wasn't up in the area. And the bourbon was great. They had the honey finish. I usually don't like honey finishes. Very nice. And their cherry vodka, does not taste like vodka. That is like cherry juice. That's what I'd be mixing in with my old fashioned is that cherry vodka, because it had a wonderful flavor. I wasn't, it's one of those things that like, wow, this is like cherry pie cherry, not like I said, once again, not too sugary, but you're like, damn. And because we're getting to an hour and I don't want to keep anyone on too late. What were was there a distillery or at least a release out there that was kind of the hidden gem or a little bit of a surprise for you that kind of jumped out of nowhere?
I'm going to tell you it was the Blue Ash.
Blue Ash? I can see that.
I had never heard of them before, and I enjoyed very much what they had.
Yeah, they were solid. Mine, just because it was, I was not expecting it, because I do not, once again, I don't do moonshine very often. As Hendrick's bourbon, they have their own bourbon, and they have bourbon was nice, but I was gonna say the moonshines I was not expecting. They were all spot on flavor wise. It kind of almost freaked me out. You know, when you have I had the lemon one, and I was like, oh damn, I could. That's dangerous. I could, because I like lemon. Like that. That's a scary bottle right there. And then someone else had maple. Oh, that was really good. And I'm like, didn't expect you to say that. And then I had the caramel one. I'm like, that's a little sweet, but I'm like, it has a home in a cocktail. I was like, you know, like all of a sudden I was like, did I just get excited about moonshine? What the hell happened here? I was like, look at all this, you know. And so like, I think that was midway through. So like, at that point, it was, I wasn't ready for it. And I think, I don't remember if it was them. It was someone else. Did they do? If I could be wrong, I think they did their stuff out of potatoes. It's one of those things that I got too much information in a day, and I have stuff like written off to the side. But I don't know. Sometimes it's good to be like that because it makes you go back and be like, okay, who was doing what? You know, take out the cards. You're like, okay, it was you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One distillery I think that really blew us away was the one that's owned by Coors, the Five Mile Bourbon.
Yeah.
That was fabulous.
That came out of nowhere. I'd
Yeah.
never heard of that guy before. I mean, well, everybody's heard of Adolf Coors and the Coors family and everything, but the grandson or great grandson or something like that is going into whiskey, and it was respectable. It was
Yeah.
pretty good.
They what is it? They distill it out in Colorado, and then it's blended at Bardstown.
Mm-hmm.
And Peggy No Stevens is one of the blenders on it.
Right.
And it's a couple different states too. I thought it was like 4 different states.
Okay.
It wasn't just.
Might be.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
They're doing some interesting blending with it, and they're doing a good job. It was tasty.
That one just came out of nowhere for
Mhm.
me. I hadn't heard
Right.
of them before.
I'd seen no press about them, or I mean, I think they're just hitting magazines and interviews and things like that. Pretty quick.
I've seen them on the store shelves for a while, and I remember tasting it at Distill and thinking it was good, but I was so late into the day at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My palate is dead, so I don't trust it, but I can still pick out bad stuff, and that was not bad.
Right.
You know, you get into the breweries that are doing whiskey, and immediately you go to PBR.
That's what I was like. Everyone knows that 5-second whiskey.
No.
Just why.
But yeah, I almost think that like I'm sure that slowed them down from coming out because it is a different image than what you're going through. I think the oldest they had and what they have now is 14 years, and in the next release they're having like a 19-year-old that's being like a part of it. Like so, the people are like they're making an effort to blend, and on this show we respect every part of it because blending it's just as important, if not. Hell, it's mind-blowing in its own art. Just small scale and large scale. There's 2 different things there that it blows my mind to think of. When you don't always want, because we're a craft show, always want to give the big people respect, but I can't imagine trying to keep a handle on 20,000 barrels and profiles, and even if it is like regional in a rick house, like trying to blend on that scale is unfathomable to me. So kudos to anyone doing that.
Blending is truly an art form.
Yeah.
And not to get out of American whiskey, but when somebody tells me that they only drink single malt whiskeys, it's game on at that point, because I do a ton of blind tastings, and at the end of the day, you are going to say, "What is this? I loved it." And oh my gosh, look, it's a blended whiskey. Blending is an art form, and it is, I want to get to this point. How do I get there?
Well, and I think some of it is like when you think blending, some people don't think of that stuff's blended in-house before it leaves. When they're doing stuff, I'm like, oh no, that all happens like even on a smaller scale. Like that's happening before it comes out. So I'm like, yeah, that's a big deal. It's not like they're just going to pull every barrel and every barrel tastes exactly the same, like fucking magic. I
will say this: I think Five Trail is it's it's a very interesting model that they put out.
Mhm.
They are not selling that through the liquor part of the distributors. Those are the beer guys selling all that spirit.
I did not know
The
that.
liquor guys
Okay.
don't have that in their book. So it's fascinating. And I will say this, we got Four Roses in Wisconsin. We moved up 2 tiers on their business plan because they came to Distill America. And my guess is that Five Trail is another reason that people are leapfrogging Wisconsin up. They're starting to see events, and if they're starting to see good quality events and they're seeing an educated market and a good place for them to start to roll out, that's kudos to us as a state for being responsible drinkers and drinking curious and being interested in new stuff. So kudos to everyone that buys a ticket that is very interested in the industry.
Fred, didn't Angels get their introduction?
Yep.
Angels.
So, I mean, it's not insignificant, an event like this, because it can leapfrog people into, something as small as New Holland. When they came out, they came to Wisconsin after Michigan's second just because of Distill. So, it's a little launching. It's amazing what you can do when nobody takes a salary and you give all the money away to charity. So, people feel real different about being behind a table at an event like that when they know that all the money is going to the Wisconsin Distillers Guild. So, and it's not somebody lining their pockets. And I'm all for
the other great thing about it is you're a bartender. You can afford to go to this show. It's you have some connection to, like you said earlier. You work the liquor aisle of Woodman's or something like that. You can afford to go to the show and try this stuff and learn.
Yep.
Whereas Whiskey Fest, there's a lot of people who can't afford to go there.
So a lot of people, and the people that are in that room are already buying all those products. They can already afford the majority of those products. So is that good marketing? I would argue maybe not so much. Yeah. But I saw think about if you're a bar owner or a restaurant owner and you can send 4 of your staff there for $250, and that would, and write it off as an education event, because it is. And
if they're actually people who create cocktails, like that is, what I mean? Like I'd be there with a notebook.
Yeah.
Well, we and in a little video that I am splicing together, we did get one guy that was going from booth to booth mixing his own drink. He was like,
how cool is that?
We asked him, he's like, it's 60% state line. And then I went over here and it's like 30% this. And then I went to this one and it's a splash on top of that. And we're like, holy shit, we'd never approached this event this way.
Oh, guess
that's
what Dean is doing next year?
Out of an event. Wow, that's awesome.
Dean is going to be on that next year.
Yeah.
I was like,
I gotta say though that the old-fashioned shoot off was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Yeah,
that was pretty
fun.
cool.
And it's one of those, we're always trying to do a cocktail event for one of those two, and we're always trying to do both of them during general. And I told them, because we typically get 35 people in there max, we had 72 in that one.
Yeah, it was packed.
And they had prepped for 50 people. So, and it was just, it was great to showcase the difference between a brandy old fashioned, a bourbon old fashioned, and then a rye old fashioned, because they couldn't be more different drinks.
Right.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they were presented great too.
Yeah, and those 3 guys.
Yeah.
There was a reason we presented that way. If you could put Joe Henry the Younger in any room, and suddenly 60 women are in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put the rest of us in there, there's a bunch of other old dudes hanging out with us. So he always plays well. And that's one of the things that I told that story in that event about the Henrys. I could see the back side of the DSP based on what access I had to the state records. And I kept seeing for 4 years straight, there was somebody in Dane, Wisconsin that had pulled a DSP. And I called and left messages for 4 straight years. Hey, I'm putting on this event. You guys want to come? And for 4 straight years, I got no return phone call until I did on the 5th year. And they brought out the 5-year and they debuted it at Distill.
Yeah.
And they've actually wrapped a bunch of their brand new releases, not all, but many, around the debut at Distill, which has been very honoring to that they think that much of the little event that we put on.
Yeah, they brought some brand new
Bellefontaine. You should mention that, Fred, because that's how I got the Henrys too. Was I got out there and they're like, well, our tasting room isn't ready yet. I'm like, I don't care. I want to come out. I want to talk to you. I want to interview you. I want to see what you're doing.
Yep.
And, it went from there. But yeah, it's theirs is a fascinating story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is. It is. It's a wonderful, and it's a story of Wisconsin,
Yeah.
Yep.
So I also love the fact that, one of the great things about being outside is that, when people started, you get a couple of jars in you get a couple sips in you become a little less Wisconsin nice. And we didn't have to empty any dump buckets. People just threw stuff in the grass.
Yep.
Which was
Keeping right by you over here to go to the next table.
Yep. And that is one of the things that is the demystification of going to a whiskey event or going even to a beer tasting. There's not one producer that will ever get mad at you for pouring something out, even in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all used to it, and we all understand that it's going to be a long day and it's a marathon. So, everybody wants to be responsible and everybody wants you to taste their stuff. So the only way to do that is take small sips.
Yeah.
Except when you're an idiot like me, in the first 4 or 5 tables, you're looking for the dump bucket.
Got it.
No, throw it in the grass. Oh no, I'm going to put it in a dump bucket.
Spencer was wondering, are you guys thinking of keeping it in the May date again, or leaning back towards February?
I will say this: there's a couple handcuffing elements to putting this on in Madison. We don't have another venue bigger than the Edgewater. We don't have another ballroom until you get to the Overture Center or something along the scope and scale of the Monona Terrace. And that would immediately make the lowest ticket $150.
Yep.
So if we were going to try to grow this to say 100 distillers and add maybe 100 more people, I don't want to do that. I want a $65, $75 ticket for accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, and I know everybody said, yeah, you got lucky on weather. You got lucky on weather. I still think that we're cut from some pretty damn hardy cloth in the Midwest, that as long as it's not, and even if it were snowing, which it probably wouldn't be in May, but even if it were raining a little bit and it were a little damp and it was a little windy, as long as it wasn't a hurricane, I think we'd figure it out. So, and I think and I don't think the producers would tick me on it at all. I think they were so elated with not. I mean, because you never know how to dress in those ballrooms. I can turn the heat all the way off and turn the air conditioning on Tuesday for a Saturday event, and it's still too hot.
Yeah.
Okay. It's still 75 damn degrees, but the room is 52. Mm-hmm. So you get big sweaty Wisconsinites walking around in there, sweaters and sport coats, and pretty soon the room's going to be 75. But no, the thing about there's just an element of let's not overthink this by necessarily only thinking of spirits events as fancy. Why can't they be, somewhere between a beer festival and a whiskey event?
That's what I liked about the fields about this one. It was very relaxed. Not that the other ones weren't, but I think just by venue alone, it dictated, a little bit brighter mindset, as far, wear a dress shirt, or something like that with it. You didn't have, or like you said, it came off. You went back up to your hotel room and decided that was not the right choice for you. Right. And you changed. Like there's been many times that's happened. I've seen people wear a sweater. I'm like, that's a mistake. Well,
right. Big time.
Look, I had nobody complaining about my metal mesh thong. Not a single
That's
person.
Right. Nothing. I will say this. There's a symbiotic relationship because I put on a beer festival for 10,000 people directly south. So if you drew a line straight across that lake to the south end, I put on an event at a park down on that side in August. And just seeing that Capitol from 2 different angles, was it just it and there's something, I'll be honest with you, there's a reason that people put aquariums in their house. Water is calming, and water kind of takes an edge off. I've seen a couple times when it could get a little chippy in a ballroom because people bump into each other and they've been drinking, and that didn't happen when you're outside and you're in shorts and you're a little more relaxed. And it helped that we were during the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's not that pressure to, oh my God, I'm not going to go out after this. It was kind of that ease in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a really exciting part that I liked about that was because it became part of the day. you know, it wasn't like the main event at the end. I still liked it. I had no problem going out and doing other stuff afterwards, but I thought it just laid really well. You could get dinner at any point afterwards. You could still enjoy the city, get time to go back to your hotel room and get up and, you know, leave at a reasonable time. Where before, I'll be honest, I wasn't getting to bed till later on in the morning. Between, you know, walking to Ian's or doing something in the middle of the night where, you know, you need something to eat and there's only so many places open.
Well, and the nice thing for producers is, quite honestly, because most of them will come in the night before, and based upon what they all do for a living, is they will hit hit half of their market the night before, and then they've still got the entire Saturday night to go out to good accounts and say hi, say thank you, and that's what all of us need to do when we're in different cities. So giving them that opportunity and not handcuffing them by putting in the event at night, because nobody wants to go out to accounts and drink before they have to pour whiskey for 4 hours. So there's also a very rational reason to do it for the producer side as well.
Look, I thought 14 was a huge success. You know, I was sad that 13 had to be virtual, but necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so good to see people again in that kind of environment. It really was.
Yep.
And I think you did a first-class job with this. I loved it outside. I told you that the other day. It's between the two, I take outside any day.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. So I don't think I answered that person's question though. He was, he was saying he was ready to come if we were going to do it in May. So here's what we're bandying about. We're going to listen to what both sides are going to give us bad feedback on the survey. Number 2 is we'll probably never put it again on graduation weekend at the UW.
Thank you.
Because hotels are $200. That was an oversight. And then you go up a week, and then you're at Mother's Day the week before. Mm-hmm. You go back a week, and sometimes you're at Memorial Day already.
Yeah.
If you go too far up, you are competing against other things. The one sweet spot might be, in some years, it might be the very, very tail end of April. The other, it might be the 5th or 6th of May. So I'm going to try to not have it compete. And then the minute you're in June, you're competing with everything.
Yeah.
So, and the nice thing about, I mean, we kind of hashed out the idea of maybe putting it around Father's Day, just as a gift for dad kind of a thing. But that just seems so freaking misogynistic and old school. You know, it just seems like bullshit. So let's stop. I said it out loud once, and then somebody looked at me and I'm like, okay, that was dumb. So, but no, at the same time, there's competing events in Madison. So, you know, and for me, it's about hotels. Yeah. How can I keep the hotel rate down so people can still find a $120 hotel room?
No, I liked it. And like, if you're doing earlier in May like that, I mean, you're getting close to like Kentucky Derby Day. You could duel up on that. I'm just saying, you know, that's only like 5 minutes during the day.
Session. We could do a mint julep session. I'd have to get all the ice from Sonic. That's the unsung thing. Sonic is the only one that has crushed ice for the public. So if you have a Sonic near you on Derby Day, but no, I mean, I also thought that the East Side Club did a great job. I'll be really honest with you.
Yeah.
I will say one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in putting on events was try to meet a $750 bar minimum when their beer was $2 a piece. The hell, guys, you're killing me, Smalls. I looked at her, I'm
Give me an IV bag, hook it right up to the tap.
Yeah.
Jesus. So, and people were very happy with $2 beers. So.
No, the East Side Club did great. It was, even waiting in line to get in was much different than at the Edgewater, where you're in that big crazy queue. Loop.
Yeah. And you could be outside too and not feel like you're not in line or missing out on something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it was, I appreciate all the feedback. It's all good, solid information.
Yeah. It was something, and I think a lot of people like going back to it in that capacity. It was just, if you needed to take a walk or something, you were already out on. The park was right next door. You know, like you take a walk, you come back, it was very accessible, you know, and like I said, it fit into you. It's almost like it fit into your weekend rather than it being the weekend, you know, like for the focal point, this kind of fit into it. You could still plan a really nice dinner afterwards. You could, you know, if you go out, you could go to a distillery. You could do 3, 4, 5 different things. It really lended to your evening being open if there was a band or a concert or something else going on. So
I just realized this was the first Distill America where I didn't have to hit Denny's afterwards.
Nice. Look at you on the home run plate.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know, by the time I was leaving the event, it was the only thing still open.
Right. Absolutely. But think about it. If you're that the rig from Bullet wouldn't have been in the ballroom.
Right.
You know, you wouldn't have had all those big displays, and those are kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's something about, you know, a little teardrop camper that is operationalized, and they bring a bunch of furniture to sit in. I mean, that's not a bad thing, and I don't mind the big show being just part of the regular show too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the Bullet.
More authentic to me.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to interact with people.
Yep.
You know, everyone seemed a little more like family picnic rather than business.
Right. Go back to that picture, Patrick.
Yeah.
Look at how green that grass is.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
It was beautiful.
Yeah. And look at how sexy those Bullet made for those bottled cocktails are. That is a really nice package. I'm jealous. Such a nice package. It looks great on the shelf.
I was jealous as a camper. I was like, man, I'm surprised there's not more someone else doing these. I'm like, this is a really great if you're going someplace, just here we go. There, my stand's good to go.
Well, and speaking of that, they had these really cool glasses that they gave away up front.
Well, I think they were taking pictures. People said you could get in the back of the teardrop and get your picture taken.
Oh, really? Damn
Yeah, I saw a bunch of those pictures came out.
I did.
People posted them online. The
You always
Janesville
miss a
Bottle
little
Club
bit
was
of
all
something.
about doing that as well. So,
all right. Well, I want to thank each of you guys for coming on and for going to the event. I know you guys all do. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I'm sorry, Sean couldn't figure out how to work his microphone. There was other guests. They couldn't. One couldn't figure out how to work electrical equipment, and the other one was just afraid because it was his first time being on video. But I know Sean loves the event. It's just a lot of different stuff, like the mellows, a bunch of different things he never gets to try. All of a sudden, he's like, boom, what's this? What's this? What's that? And Rick had never been there before. And next day, I got an honest, after we got dropped off, everyone went about their business. I got, a text about, because I was really glad we went to that. It was a lot more flavors than what I was expecting. He goes, and that's what made the day. He goes, I never really got, I had enough to make me drunk, but there was always water. There was something else. There was everything kind of keeping me in line. And it was about tasting all the different flavors. So now he's hitting me up. Well, let's get to, I got the Driftless Glen and I got this one. But then I saw the Jefferson Ocean and it was $80-some. I'm like, yeah, that's a Friday night. Make everyone chip in bottle. Now you understand what I was doing, don't you? He's like, yes.
yes.
Like there are some bottles that it's like, yeah, everyone can pitch in on a Friday night. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. And you also are you're a better educated shopper after you go to something like this, because you're going to pick up things that you might have passed by, or you're going to hold off on buying a couple bottles because that $120 bottle was that good that you're going to save up for that one. So, I think it makes you a better consumer. I think it makes us a better consumer. It makes people a little more educated in the aisles. And I think you feel better after you come out going, oh my God, my palate is just a little bit better than when I walked in. And I think people trust their palate, and people need to learn that whiskey events, spirit events are accessible. And if you do them right, and if you really pre-think what you're doing, okay, and you eat before you come, and you drink a ton of water before you come, and you drink more water when you're there, and you eat when you're there, you get dropped off and you get picked up. There's ways to do it. It sounds undoable when you say there's 200 spirits there. Okay. But then you go and people always say the same thing after their first year. Maybe Dave and Adina are like this too. Oh my God. Yeah. It was very, very doable.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Challenge accepted.
And the other thing about it is you learn that chasing Blantons isn't the biggest deal on the planet.
Oh, right.
You'll find stuff that you're going to like a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that
Mountains there I didn't even see.
I don't think so this
Nope.
year.
Okay. Okay.
So no horses made it to the event.
There we
I
go.
didn't even look.
I didn't look.
Nothing to go tater on.
But no. But like I was saying, thank you each of you for coming on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. I just thought it was a different event this year, a different place, a different feel, but also a wonderful success. For the price, I think it's, I don't want to say underrated, but it is one of the best values for whiskey events. And for me, it's one of my favorite Wisconsin events of the year.
Mhm.
It's one of the few things that I know that's going on in Wisconsin that the wife knows. I've already marked it. Then I crossed it off and I moved it. And then I crossed it off and I moved it again. But that one was still circled as it could happen.
Right.
So
I will tell you, and I'm not saying this because Fred is here. Of all the whiskey events that I've done, Distill's the one that I set aside every single year to do, because it's just, for me, it's the most bang for the buck. It's the most educational one. You get the most out of it. You're not just going to drink.
Right.
And just the variety of all of it that was
Right.
there. I mean, it's going to the whiskey events is fine, but after you've tasted your 15th whiskey, you know, how you kind of lose some of the perception of what it should be. And this, you got to play around with different things too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely.
and then other things act as palate cleansers because you're all up in one side, and then you get something from left side, like a cantaloupe liqueur, and then it just screws your palate up, and you're like, okay, I'm back to what's interesting now.
Yeah.
So,
Or I'm going to go in and eat a burger and have some cheese, and I'm going to come back out and hit her again. Yeah.
It was I was amazed at how many people were lingering in the food area.
Yeah.
You know, I think virtually 50 to 75% of those chairs were full all the time.
Mhm.
Well, and again, it was nothing against Edgewater. It was easier to get the food than Edgewater ever was.
Oh, sure. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But so like I said, thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone in the chat for coming out. It's an event. If you don't, you should mark it on the calendar. I say it every year. Definitely do it because it's something fantastic. We'd love to see you there. And next year I might have a little more planning beforehand, and might add a little extra to the event rather than where I was stuck with this year, sadly. But I was just happy to sneak out and go.
We could go all hang out at the My Whiskey Den booth.
Well, there could be one. You never know. If we did that, we'd probably have to bring some other whiskey. I don't think we could just have a booth. We'd have to sling something.
You let me know if you want to do something.
Well,
You
okay.
could live stream from there.
Yeah, I mean, we had somebody
You
live
would not
stream
be the
this year.
first one.
We had somebody live stream the last two live events.
Well, I was gonna say we might do that, but I still feel like we should be handing out something. I don't know.
You just
You gotta do a little
maybe high fives.
high fives. Maybe we could do that. I'd be down with that.
Den had
Things that were really popular this year: buttons.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have my wife, so I didn't have like the bag of all the extra stuff. She loved going around getting all the extra stuff. She came back. The one year there was like a fan from it was a vodka company or something, and Aviation Gin. They had like a little fan and something else, and she came back. I'm like, "Where the hell were you that you were picking up all these knickknacks?" And I'm like, "Come back." I'm like, fan's not a bad idea. I was like, "It's small, but it is useful."
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
My wife came back with shirts. I didn't even see them giving away shirts.
Right.
Oh shit! See, now I feel left out. I'm like, I missed shirts too. Damn it!
I won't tell you about the $20 water bottles Bullet was giving out a couple years ago. Then
Oh, Sherry may have found a couple of those. I think she may have gotten one or two of those at one point.
well, see, there's a right there. That's a reason why you invite Tito's. You can get it. They'll give away 1,000 dog collars. You know, who doesn't want a dog collar? Most people have dogs. So, I mean, there's things that everybody takes away differently. And if you're somebody's DD, what else are you gonna do except pick up pins and look at stuff and talk to your significant other while they're drinking? You're gonna look at what's on the table as giveaways, and you're gonna grab 20 different chapsticks. There were 20 different chapsticks.
You're gonna sneak the sealed bottle of Four Roses 2021 limited edition. Oops! Can I see this? Oh, look at that over there.
Sir, come back here, sir.
I could tell stories for the next hour on taking bottles off of people. People are Wisconsin nice until they're Wisconsin thieves.
5-finger discount, baby.
Like your mother would be so disappointed in you right now, Sparky.
I'll save one. I have one of those from earlier today that sounded interesting and bullshit at the same time. But like I was saying, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate you coming on now and spending your night with us, letting people know how much fun it was, how interesting it was. Unique classes, everything that's always going on at the event. And just that you had a good time, because everyone I go there, whenever I see, is having a good time. And
yes.
That's something I can't say for a lot of events. Like you said, Fred, sometimes there's people who've had too much or in a bad spot. I never see that there. And
pretty good. We're pretty good.
You set the tone.
Comments in here. The comments are really on point. People are having fun, but they're also very insightful comments. Thank you, everybody that sat and listened to us.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, everyone. Remember, it's not the size of the den that matters. It's the love of whiskey. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.